Here's the story of a lovely lady.
She's one of America's favorite TV moms, Florence Henderson. Tells us of a life beyond the Brady Bunch. Next on Larry King Weekend. Let's go back with the Henderson saga. This is a kind of a tribute to you tonight. We'll be showing clips from various things.
Let me just say, I am so excited to be here with you. I
My
cannot
pleasure.
tell
Were
you.
you kidding? You're a turn-on to me, Florence. I love you.
You heard it here, folks.
You
okay?
heard it here, folks. All right. Grew up where?
I was born in a little town in southern Indiana called Dale. Very tiny town. I was my parents' 10th child. My father, I think you'll find this interesting, was 47 when he married. That was his first and only marriage.
And he had 10 children?
I was his 10th.
How old was he when you were born?
67. My mother was 25 years younger, and we were a very, very poor family. My father was a sharecropper, you know, tried to raise tobacco, anything he could do to earn a living for us.
And how old were you when he died?
I was 16, and he
So
was
you
82.
He's got into teenage with you.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
What was it like to be youngest of 10?
Well,
Did
because
they ever forget your name?
my father never knew my name. I don't think he did. I mean, if he really stopped and thought about it, but it was always Pauline, Gal, and he always wound up calling me Gal. There were just too many.
What was it like to be the 10th?
Well, in many ways, it was wonderful because I seemed to come into the world singing, and so they all encouraged that. And I was passing the hat when I was 2 and 3 years old. I went to school with my older brother and sister and sat in the bench with them. I still write to that first teacher, Sister Gemma.
Still around?
Oh, she's a Benedictine. She just turned 80. And as I look back, she must have been about 17 years old when she became a nun.
How did you get out of Dana, Indiana?
Dale.
Dale, Indiana.
That, you know, it's a hard name to remember, isn't it?
Gas station
so
and
famous.
Food market, and that's it, right?
That's just about it. Well, we moved from Dale to Rockport, another booming metropolis, not too far away, and I went to grade school there and sang in the choir, learned 4-part masses, sang, you know, the old Latin masses, Gregorian chant, all of that.
Domini.
Dominus vobiscum, et cum spiritu tuo.
Very good.
Vatican
Airlines.
Yeah, right.
Leaving now for Lisbon.
Right.
A Mark Russell routine. Anyway, how did you break out of all of this?
Okay, well, I always wanted to be in show business. And when I was a kid, my salvation, you know, like a lot of minorities tell me that the Brady Bunch really was their hope and kind of gave them something to strive for. For me, those movie musicals, I mean, it was everything.
Dan Daly and Betty Grable.
Oh, and June Haver and
Vivian Blaine.
Oh, I mean, you could go on and on and on. Fred Astaire, Judy Garland, all of them. Jane Powell.
You were a freak fan for that.
Well, yeah, because it gave me hope. I mean, I auditioned for Horace Heidt, and I brought along, I didn't know anything about the business.
He had an amateur show.
I went to high school in Owensboro, Kentucky, and he came there. And you could audition at this radio station. WOMI was the name of it. So I took a record of Jane Powell. They said, "Where's your piano player?" I said, "A piano player? I don't have a piano player." I gave them this record, and they put it on, and I sang along with Jane Powell.
Did you get on the show?
No.
Didn't get on Horace Heidt?
Nope.
So how did you get out of it?
Okay, my best friend in high school was a very wealthy girl, and I had the lead in the high school operetta, Jerry of Jericho Road, very famous. I'm sure you've heard of that, just like Dale. And
keep it up, Florence. Keep it up. I happen to love Jerry of Jericho Road. I like the switch in Jerry of Jericho Road when we learn he's gay. I think that was very significant. Never mind. Go, Florence.
And anyway, she had her family come and hear the musical, and I had picked out the American Academy of Dramatic Arts in New York City with no idea how to get there. They said, "Well, we will take you to a woman named Christine Johnson, who was the Aunt Nettie in Carousel with John Raitt. She sang You'll Never Walk Alone, June is busting out all over, and she'd come back and married her childhood sweetheart in Owensboro, Kentucky." And I went and sang for her, and she said, "This child has talent, ability, she deserves a break."
And you went to the American Academy.
And I got sponsored to the American Academy.
What was like this little 10th child of an older father from small town to hit New York?
I'd never seen a building over 2 stories high. It took me weeks to have the courage to look up. And I was scared to death, and yet I was so confident.
You always knew you had ability.
I knew I had ability, and I thought, well, if I'm not really out there and doing something important in 3 years, then maybe I'll reconsider. And at the end of the first year at the Academy, I went to an audition for a show called Wish You Were Here, and that started my career.
One of my favorite shows. Did you live in the YWCA or a hotel for women?
Well, the first night I got there, I knew nothing about the city, and they thought I should stay. Christine thought I should stay at the Barbizon Hotel for Women.
That's
you know?
a famous place.
Well, it was too expensive. I couldn't read the menu. The only thing I knew what was on the menu was a vegetable plate or something, because we never ate out. We didn't have fancy food or anything.
Where'd you stay?
I stayed there one night. The next day I went to the Academy, and they said, well, there's a wonderful place up on West 85th Street called the Three Arts Club. And it was for women, and you had to be in some form of the business. And that's where I stayed, and I could afford that.
So as a teenager, Florence Henderson lands a part in Wish You Were Here, a wonderful show, a title song that became very famous. Playing?
Well, I had a wonderful part. I was the new girl in camp.
And it was a song about the summer camp.
Yes, it was based on a wonderful book by Arthur Coburg called Having a Wonderful Time, and it was a camp in the Catskills. And so a very interesting story that happened to me then. Jack Cassidy was the star, and Jack had this wonderful tenor voice, and I was in the chorus, and I covered every part that I could. If they had an audition for one of the understudies, I was there. Josh Logan said, "You want to understudy all the guys too?" I said, "Anybody, I don't care, just let me at it." So when they were all on stage and Jack Cassidy was singing "Where Did the Night Go?" or one of those wonderful songs, I would run downstairs to the basement and I would change clothes into my wonderful little dress to be the new girl and walk across stage and say, "Can I still see the game?" And then I would get a big laugh and walk off. Well, as I was running down the stairs to change, I was just so thrilled to be in the show, and life, was wonderful. And I'm going, "Where did the night go so soon, so soon?" Well, Bobby Griffith was the stage manager, and he comes running down the stairs, and he said, "Who in the hell is that down there singing? Shut up. Jack Cassidy sounds like a soprano on stage."
You were coming through?
My voice was going out through the orchestra pit. You go into the orchestra pit through the basement. Well, I was mortified to come on stage with that line.
Did you finish the American Academy?
No, I didn't go back for the second year.
Because you had
I was
a career.
Invited, but I seriously considered it, but I talked to the head of the Academy and different people, and they said, "This is what you come to the second year for, is to learn how to be on stage."
You've been on stage.
And you're doing it. And I've never been out of work since.
Never out of work?
Never.
From
I've
Wish
never
You Were Here
longed
to what?
To right now. I've never been.
What came right after Wish?
Right after Wish You Were Here, while I was in that show, I went to an open call for Rodgers and Hammerstein. And I didn't know if they were looking for anyone, but an open call, you can just go.
Like Shirley Jones did.
Exactly. And so they called me back. Richard Rodgers was there, Oscar Hammerstein. And I sang again. I read a scene for them. And they called me out front, and they said, "We are sending out the last National Company of Oklahoma. Would you like to play Laurie?" I said, "I don't know what's she like." I hadn't seen Oklahoma. And they said, "Well, she's kind of like you." And they said, "How old are you?" I said, "I'm 18. They said, Dick Rogers said, "You're a little old for the part, I think." And I went, "Really?" And of course, they were teasing. And of course, I had worked so hard to lose this accent, where I talk like this and real country.
That's the way you sound.
And I had to go back to playing Laurie in Oklahoma, essentially the same accent.
And who played the male lead with?
I had two different ones, a guy named Ralph Lowe and Ridge Bond, but my Ado Annie was the very wonderful Barbara Cook.
Oh,
and we became lifelong friends. She played Ado Annie, and I was Laurie.
Now, that had to be a great show to do.
Well, for me, it was such a great experience because not having traveled, I got to go all over the United States
Now,
and
did your
Canada.
family get to see you work? Your mom, your sisters and brothers?
My brothers and sisters and my mother always got to see me. My father passed away right before I opened in Oklahoma, in New Haven, Connecticut. And it really became a terrible burden for me, which I finally got in touch with later in life. But
which was what?
The guilt I carried. I couldn't go home. I was raised a strict Catholic. I couldn't go home because I had no understudy. We were going to open.
You couldn't go to your father's funeral.
And I couldn't go to my father's funeral. And, my father was a wonderful man. He had a lot of problems. He had a drinking problem. The last thing that I did for my father was to shave him and say, now, Daddy, you be good, you know. I'm going to be checking on you. And, okay, gal, I will. And then he would tell me, you know, that the most important thing in life was your character and your reputation, and nobody takes that from you. You give it away. And I heard that speech over and over and over again. So I felt, you know, very sad about that.
What was the break that we came to know Florence Henderson? America came to know you. What was your big break?
Well, my big break on Broadway was after doing Oklahoma. I got a call from Josh Logan, who had done Wish You Were Here, to come in and audition for Fanny, for the role of Fanny, and that was starring Ezio Pinza, Walter Slezak, and I got to be Fanny. That was my first big break on Broadway.
That was some show.
Wasn't it a wonderful show?
I saw you in that. I saw you in Wish You Were Here. I saw you in everything you did.
I know, and he knows every lyric
I know.
to every show.
There are songs that I love, songs that don't get famous. You know,
right.
Welcome Home and Fanny.
Wasn't Love Is a Very Light Thing?
Love Is a Very Light Thing. Where Did the Night Go and Wish You Were Here.
Right, right. All those songs, great
So you
songs.
were a hit in Fanny, and Fanny was a semi-hit, right?
Well, it ran an awfully long time.
I know, it got mixed reviews.
But it did get mixed reviews. It was kind of ahead of its time. You know, there wasn't a lot of dialogue. There was a lot of music. And working with people like Pinza and Slezak, they were such devils, you know. And Pinza was, you know, always like pinching you and going, Bella, oh, Bella. And he was just fabulous. What a wonderful, wonderful man.
Interesting. It must have been fun to sing with him.
Oh, I mean, I was usually tongue-tied, you know, but he would put you at ease. And he still had this incredible voice. He would hit a note that would just, you know, make your hair stand on end.
Did you ever want to do opera?
Yes, I learned a lot of operatic roles. I studied it because it's very good for the voice. You know, I'm a small person, but I have this very big voice. And so learning how to support that, control it, singing opera, singing Italian is very good for the voice, keeping it in line. That's why Tony Bennett still sings so well.
Yeah.
You know? So
Fanny then put you on the...
From Fanny, I went from that, and then I started doing television, a little bit of television, and I became the Today Girl. Nobody knows that.
Today Girl where?
On the Today Show. I was I told you something you didn't know.
What did you do?
I was the Barbara Walters. I was the Today. You don't say
with
girl.
With Garraway?
Yeah, I was the last one with Garraway.
Before he left the show?
Yeah.
You were like an interviewer and everything?
Yeah, absolutely.
But they didn't feature you much because there were not many ladies in television then, were there?
No, and I got pregnant on the show. Not on the desk, but however, I did get pregnant on the show, and you couldn't even say the word pregnant then. Think about it.
With child.
With child, all those silly phrases, and they would hide me behind the desk, and I sang on the show, and they would hide me behind a potted palm.
You were there with the chipmunk too?
Oh, you know, Dave was so amazing. He wanted to see one time what, you know, the phrase, more fun than a barrel of monkeys. He wanted to see what that was really like. He brought a barrel of monkeys to the show, took the top off, and these monkeys all escaped, ran up into the grids and everything, and believe me, we were getting...
He was a special guy.
We were getting dumped on. And, yes,
that was a special.
Peace.
Did you ever go to Hollywood? Did you do movies?
Well, as a matter of fact, between my 2 seasons of Oklahoma, I was summoned to Los Angeles to a screen test for Oklahoma. And I didn't get the
Who got that role?
Oh, Shirley Jones got it.
That's what Shirley.
Shirley Jones,
Who had also done it.
No, I don't think Shirley. Well, maybe
she had done Carousel.
I don't think she'd ever done Oklahoma, but she had done. She was in the chorus of Me and Juliet. So Rogers really thought she had a lot of ability.
She also got picked out in an open audition.
Right. Absolutely.
We'll be right back with the wonderful Florence Henderson. We haven't even mentioned Brady.
No, we haven't got there. We're getting there.
We're getting there. We'll be right back with the saga of Henderson. Don't go away. The story of the Brady Bunch.
Okay, well, let me tell you quickly how I got that part. I was living in New York. I was Broadway, doing television.
This is what year now?
This was '69. And I had been out here. I played at the Century Plaza. I was doing a Dean Martin show. I adored Dean Martin. I learned so much from him. And I was a regular on his variety show.
Great guy.
Great, great guy. He used to say to me, Florence, you like to rehearse too much. He said, you're going to become too good, and then nobody's going to want to watch you.
Unique perspective on life.
Yeah, he thought TV, you know, you needed to be kind of look like you were being...
I feel that way too.
Yeah, don't be too rehearsed.
Yeah.
And I agree with him on certain things. But in any case, I was out here to do his show, and I got a call from my agent. I was on my way that night after finishing Dean's show to go to the Shamrock Hotel in Houston. And
no more.
I know. All those great places are no more.
Yeah.
And they said, would you come down to Paramount Studios and meet Sherwood Schwartz, John Rich, Doug Kramer, all these people, they're looking for somebody for the series. I said, I live in New York. Forget it. Well, I went down there and I met them, and they said, would you come back around 6 o'clock and do a test on the Star Trek set? We'll have somebody do a scene with you. I said, as long as I can make that flight to Houston, because I've got to open there tomorrow night. So they said, fine. I came back, and I got made up in the Star Trek trailer. William Shatner was in there. Not too friendly. Mm-hmm. In any case, he apologized for that much later on. I did the test, made the flight, a late flight to Houston. Next night, getting ready to go on stage for the opening, I get a call, would you come right back to L.A. and do the pilot of this show, The Brady Bunch? And I said, oh my gosh. Well, I went to the head of the hotel and said, would you let me out if we can get someone to fill in? I'll come back. If this show's a success, I'll come back for the same money.
Good deal.
He said, okay. And
you did?
The rest
and you
is
came
history.
Back?
Yeah.
And you went back. How many years did Brady Bunch run?
It ran on ABC for 5 years. We were off about 2 years. We came back and we did 10 variety hours, the Brady Bunch, with a swimming pool of all things. Can you believe that? Why? The Croft, you know, Sid and Marty Croft. They're kind of wild, crazy people.
Kids loved that show. I remember my daughter loved
Well,
watching
you know, it's never been off the air, Larry, in this country, and it's in around 130 countries around the world.
They even got football players doing a takeoff of it.
I know.
Quarterbacks looking at each other.
It's amazing.
And was the cast the same from the get-go?
Yes.
Robert Reed?
Well, I found out that originally a girl named Joyce Bulifant was cast in my role, and Kathleen Freeman was in Ann B. Davis's role. After I was hired, then they hired Ann B. Davis. And you talk about chemistry. We just had this great chemistry. And we all loved each other. We cared about each other. We all understood each other. We all knew that Robert Reed was gay. Nobody cared. Nobody ever mentioned it in all the years we worked together. You know, we did our last reunion just a few years ago.
He died fairly recently.
About 3 years ago, and he died of AIDS, and with such dignity and such courage.
You spoke to him before he...
Oh, I mean, as a matter of fact, how I found out that he was ill, he called me to do a benefit for him, a cancer benefit, in Little Rock. And I said, Bob, what's the matter? He said, oh, I've got lymphoma, but I'm going to be okay. And he taught this wonderful class at UCLA, Shakespeare. And so I went and I did the benefit, and then we kept in touch, and I said, well, let me come out. You know, he says, no. He was very proud man. He was a very handsome man. I guess he'd lost a lot of weight. We kept in very close touch, and then one day he called me and he said, Florence, I hate to tell you this. I really thought I was going to make it. But he said, I'm not. He said, I'm not going to make it, and I'd like you to call the kids for me if you would. Well.
The kids in the cast?
Yes. They were his children. He loved those kids. And each of them, I mean, they just cried like it was their own father.
You go to a funeral?
Yes. We were among the few there. You know, tried to keep it very quiet, very private. And, of course, then the day after, I guess, one of our wonderful tabloids printed his death certificate on the front page. Cool.
Well, they don't think about that.
No.
Why did that show work?
Well, I think because of what it represented. I think the timing of it came at the end of the Vietnam War. You know, the drug culture, the flower children, all of that was beginning to wane. I think people wanted to believe in something again.
It was kind of heralded the 70s.
Exactly.
Out of the 60s into the 70s, the Brady Bunch.
We came in with those flared pants and that polyester, like, here we were. And my hairdos, don't ask me where I got those ideas from. I don't know. My skirts went up, my skirts went down. The shoes went up, the shoes went down. But I think because we took that show so seriously. We were filmed, you know, not like today with 5-camera shows, and it's a little easier. We had tough work. We did like 22 pages a day sometimes. We would rehearse for the crew, they would light it, and then we'd shoot it.
Oh, what
all day long. all day long.
You're like a movie, like a mini
Exactly.
movie.
And we'd go off in a corner and we'd try to improvise and come up with things that would make the show special. But I think one of the reasons that people parody it, why it's held, you know, I think people hold a lot of affection for the Brady Bunch in their hearts because we took it very seriously. We believed it.
The movie did well, didn't it? The big movie without you?
The first movie did great. Betty Thomas directed it. It didn't do as well. None of us were in the second one.
I know. There was all new people.
Yeah.
And the Brady Bunch in the 90s, right?
Yeah, I think the cast, you know, was Shelley Long and all those people were the same in the children, but they didn't use any of the original cast, which they did in the first movie.
Who wrote that song?
I believe Sherwood Schwartz, I think his son Lloyd had something to do with it, and Frank Duvall.
Frank Duvall?
I think so. Frank did a lot of our underscoring.
Why did we love that song so much?
Well, I think because that
it's
little song, it told our whole story. You know, John Pate is a wonderful comic. I was hosting Live at the Improv. He said to the audience, let's all sing our national anthem. So he started, oh, say, can you see? Everybody was great on that phrase, and then little by little they all started dropping out. People didn't know the words. He said, okay, let's try this song. He started out with the Brady Bunch. Everybody in the audience knew it, all ages. He would stop and pick it up, you know, anywhere, and they would start again.
The show was never soppy to you? You know, people who kidded it a lot say that it was not real.
Well, that all depends. I think a lot of it was real for those times.
The kids, the little girls thought it was real. Teenage girls thought it was real.
They thought it was real. They loved the stories. There was a moral in every story, just a little one. And I think it did for people what those movies did for me. It was a little idealized, but those parents cared for the children. They fought, they made up. The kids fought, they made up. There was
How'd the kids do?
In life, how are they doing? They're all very well adjusted.
Nobody got screwed up?
No, isn't that lucky?
And I think, surprising.
I think because they all had great parents, and they had Robert Reed and me and Amby Davis. We loved those kids. And they were treated as professionals, and they acted like professionals.
And they become actors and actresses?
Barry Williams is a wonderful stage performer. He did Pippin, he did
I
City of Angels.
I had him on.
He's excellent.
He was on my radio show.
Chris Knight, who's like a young Clark Gable. This kid is so handsome. He's brilliant. He's got a wonderful computer business. Mike Lookenland is behind the camera, lives in Utah, has a family. Maureen McCormick has a beautiful child. She still acts and sings. Eve Plum is an actress, sometimes stand-up comic. We worked together last year, did a TV movie together. And Susan Olsen just had her first child.
You do so many things.
I know.
You're also, did you once nearly go deaf?
Yes.
Due to what, a hereditary?
I have a disease that is more common in women than men. However, men do get it. It's called otosclerosis. And essentially what happens is that those little bones in the middle ear, the anvil and the stirrup and so forth, they become very soft and sludgy, and sound can't get through to the nerve, which is back here.
Oh, this happens to you?
It starts manifesting itself in your late teens, and I started really losing my hearing in my 20s.
And you have no hearing? Well, how do you hear now?
Oh, I hear perfectly. Dr. Howard House and Dr. Alan Shearer did my first operation, Howard House, here at the House Hear Institute. Did my second operation. I probably hear better than most people. My hearing is perfect. But I have stainless steel and Teflon in both ears. I can cook in my ears. Nothing sticks to them. It's great. You can't imagine what I'm hearing.
At the airport, do you send off the meter?
Sometimes I pick up interesting sounds. But you can't imagine for someone who makes their living through music, and when you all of a sudden don't hear that piano or that violin, light instruments, it is the most terrifying feeling in the world.
Did you always hear your own voice?
What I would do, yes, I could hear my own voice, but if I lost an instrument, I would cut off a note early to make sure I was on pitch. I became so conscious of it. But when I woke up from my first surgery, and my first response was turn down the microphones before I really came to, it was the most dramatic moment of my life. It was like giving birth. It was that kind of almost transcendent experience.
You are also a hypnotherapist like your husband?
Yes, I am.
He taught you?
Well, he has the largest school probably in the world here in the San Fernando Valley called the Hypnosis Motivation Institute. I was helped there many, many years ago.
Why did you need the help?
I went there because I had developed, I know you'll find this hard to believe, stage fright and fear of flying. Two things you don't want in our business, right? And it really was kind of immobilizing me.
You got off an airplane and didn't get on.
Oh, I would always get on, but I just terrified. And I had a lot of bad things happen in airplanes. So it was kind of mixed, fear, phobia mixed, and I had tried different ways to address this and get rid of it. I don't run from things. I keep, you know, hacking away at it. And I went to HMI, and after about 6 sessions, I started to understand my problem. And a lot of it was nutritional. Some of it was based on, you know, actual happenings, and some had become phobic in nature.
Is that where you met your husband?
I met my husband there. I went to the school because I was so helped by it. I took all the courses. I'm certified as a hypnotherapist, and it's the most exciting field. It's the oldest therapeutic modality known to man, and yet I think it will be the therapy of the future. I work a lot with terminally ill cancer patients, and if you could see how powerful a tool it is, everybody would learn about it.